The first thing my father said after I flew 6 hours through a snowstorm to spend Christmas with my family was not "welcome home." It was not "how was your flight?" It was not even "we missed you." No. He opened the front door, looked me dead in the eyes, and asked one question. "You are here to watch the kids while your sister and her husband go on vacation, right?" And when my entire family started laughing behind him like this was completely normal, I smiled back and quietly told them something that made every face in that doorway go pale. You all might want to check your phones. If you have ever felt used by the people who were supposed to love you, if you have ever been treated like your only value was what you could provide for everyone else, then this story is going to hit hard. So before we begin, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from tonight. And trust me, by the end of this story, you are going to understand why sometimes the most satisfying revenge is simply refusing to be used one more second. Naomi Carter had spent almost her entire adult life being the responsible one, the dependable one, the fixer. At 31 years old, she had built a career most people would have been proud of. She worked as a senior life cycle marketing manager for a major company in Northern Virginia, earning enough to live comfortably, travel when she wanted, and slowly build the kind of stable future she never had growing up. Her apartment was clean, organized, quiet. She planned everything carefully, every bill paid early, every meeting color-coded in her calendar, every goal mapped out months in advance. From the outside, her life looked calm and successful. But beneath all of that structure was a kind of exhaustion that had been quietly eating her alive for years, because Naomi's family did not see her as a daughter. They saw her as a solution. Whenever somebody forgot to pay a bill, Naomi handled it. Whenever her sister needed help with groceries, Naomi sent money. Whenever her parents fell behind on utilities, Naomi quietly transferred funds without asking questions. Birthdays, emergencies, school supplies, insurance payments, late fees, random crises at 2 a.m. Somehow all roads eventually led back to Naomi. And the worst part was not even the money. It was the expectation. The assumption that she would always step in no matter how exhausted, overworked, or emotionally drained she already was. At first, she convinced herself it was temporary. Families struggle sometimes, people fall on hard times. That was normal. But temporary slowly became permanent. Months became years. And over time, Naomi noticed something painful. Nobody ever called to ask how she was doing unless they needed something first. The conversations always followed the same script. "Hey, sweetheart, how have you been?" Then 3 minutes later, "So listen, we're in a little situation." Her mother was especially skilled at it. She had this soft, wounded voice she used whenever she wanted something. A voice that could make guilt feel like a moral obligation. Naomi would hear that tone and immediately feel the pressure settle into her chest before the actual request even came out. Sometimes it was money for groceries. Sometimes it was help with the mortgage. Sometimes it was her sister needing somebody to watch the kids just for a weekend that somehow turned into 4 days. And every time Naomi tried setting even the smallest boundary, the punishment came immediately. Her father would call her selfish, her mother would cry, her sister would act hurt and offended. Then silence would follow for days until Naomi apologized for daring to have limits. After enough years of that cycle, something inside her changed. She stopped asking herself what she wanted. She started asking what would keep the peace fastest. That was how people like Naomi slowly disappeared inside their own lives. Not through one giant sacrifice, but through thousands of tiny ones. And Christmas had always been the worst season of all. Every holiday became another opportunity for her family to expect more from her while giving less in return. Naomi would buy gifts nobody appreciated, pay for dinners nobody thanked her for, solve problems nobody planned for, and still somehow end up feeling like the inconvenience by the end of it. But this year felt different. A week before Christmas, her mother called, sounding unusually emotional. Naomi still remembered sitting at her desk in Virginia, staring out the office window while snow drifted past the glass as her mother spoke softly through the phone. "Honey, Christmas just won't feel complete without you here." Naomi had closed her eyes for a second when she heard that, because despite everything, despite years of disappointment, there was still a small part of her that wanted to believe her. Family loved her the way families were supposed to. Her mother kept going. She said everyone missed her. Said the kids kept asking about Aunt Naomi. Said the holidays had not felt the same since Naomi moved away. And for the first time in a while, Naomi let herself hope. Maybe this year would finally be different. Maybe they genuinely wanted her there. Maybe she was being too harsh. So she rearranged work meetings, paid for a last-minute flight, wrapped gifts, packed carefully, and flew across the country to Colorado through one of the worst winter storms of the season. The trip itself was miserable. Delays, crowded airports, wet boots, exhausted travelers, packed shoulder to shoulder under harsh fluorescent lights while flight announcements echoed endlessly overhead. By the time Naomi landed, her back ached from sitting upright for hours and her phone battery was barely alive. Outside the airport, snow came down in thick, heavy sheets, coating the roads in gray slush. Still, despite all of it, she smiled during the rideshare home, because somewhere deep down she still wanted to walk through that front door and feel wanted. That was the cruelest part about people who grow up emotionally neglected. They keep hoping anyway. By the time Naomi reached her parents' house, it was already dark outside. Christmas lights glowed softly across neighboring rooftops while icy wind cut through her coat. Her suitcase wheels dragged heavily through snow as she walked toward the front porch, and before she even had time to knock, the front door opened. Her father stood there. Tall, broad shoulders, permanent scowl etched into his face like anger had physically reshaped him over the years. He did not smile, did not move to hug her, did not say hello. He just looked irritated, like she was late. Naomi still remembered how cold the porch suddenly felt in that moment. Then he said it. "If you're not here to babysit the kids while your sister and Tyler go on their trip, then I don't know why you bothered coming." For one second, Naomi honestly thought she misheard him. Behind him, her sister Ashley appeared, already wearing an expensive winter coat with car keys dangling from her fingers. She was grinning. Actually grinning. Then Tyler appeared carrying luggage. Then her mother stepped into view, smiling nervously. Then even the kids started laughing because apparently everybody in that house already knew the plan except Naomi. And suddenly the entire 6-hour flight made sense. The emotional phone call, the urgency, the guilt, the "we miss you." They had not invited her home because they loved her. They invited her because they needed free childcare. Naomi stood there frozen while snow melted, slowly into the edges of her boots. Her fingers tightened around the suitcase handle so hard her knuckles turned white inside her gloves. And the truly horrifying part was how casual everybody looked about it. Like this was normal. Like her existence automatically belonged to them. Ashley laughed first. "Oh my God, don't look so shocked. We figured you'd help. You're amazing with the kids." Tyler chuckled behind her. Her father crossed his arms, and her mother gave that same weak little smile she always used whenever she wanted Naomi to swallow something painful quietly. Nobody asked if she was tired. Nobody asked if she agreed. Nobody even pretended to care what she wanted. They had already assigned her role before she even landed. And standing there in the freezing Colorado snow, something inside Naomi finally snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like a rope pulled too tight for too many years finally giving way. She looked at every single face in that doorway. Then she smiled and said something that instantly wiped the laughter off all of them. You guys should probably check your phones. And the second those phones started buzzing, everything changed. The first phone to buzz was Ashley's. The laughter on her face disappeared almost instantly as she glanced down at the screen. At first, she looked confused more than worried, like somebody had interrupted a joke at the wrong moment. But then her eyebrows pulled together. Her thumb started moving faster across the screen. The color slowly drained from her face while the icy wind pushed snowflakes past the open doorway behind Naomi. A second later, Naomi's father's phone vibrated too, then her mother's, one after another. Buzz. 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 The atmosphere shifted, so fast it almost felt physical. Just moments earlier, they had all been relaxed, smug, entertained by Naomi's discomfort. But now confusion spread across their expressions like cracks forming through glass. Ashley stared down at her travel app with widening eyes while Tyler stepped closer behind her trying to see the screen. "What the hell?" Ashley whispered. Naomi said nothing. Her father unlocked his phone next, and the second he read the notification, the muscle in his jaw tightened hard enough for Naomi to notice from the porch. Her mother looked between all of them nervously, already sensing the emotional explosion coming before anyone spoke. The first phone to buzz was Ashley's. The laughter on her face disappeared almost instantly as she glanced down at the screen. At first, she looked confused more than worried, like somebody had interrupted a joke at the wrong moment. But then, her eyebrows pulled together. Her thumb started moving faster across the screen. The color slowly drained from her face while the icy wind pushed snowflakes past the open doorway behind Naomi. A second later, Naomi's father's phone vibrated too. Then her mother's, one after another. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The atmosphere shifted, so fast it almost felt physical. Just moments earlier, they had all been relaxed, smug, entertained by Naomi's discomfort. But now confusion spread across their expressions like cracks forming through glass. Ashley stared down at her travel app with widening eyes while Tyler stepped closer behind her trying to see the screen. "What the hell?" Ashley whispered. Naomi said nothing. Her father unlocked his phone next, and the second he read the notification, the muscle in his jaw tightened hard enough for Naomi to notice from the porch. Her mother looked between all of them nervously, already sensing the emotional explosion coming before anyone spoke. Then Ashley finally looked up. "What did you do?" Her voice sounded sharp now, panicked. Naomi adjusted the strap on her shoulder slowly, calmly, while cold air curled around her coat. "I canceled the resort 3 days ago." Silence. Real silence. Not the fake, awkward kind people laugh through. The heavy kind that presses against your chest. Even the kids stopped talking. Somewhere deeper inside the house, a toy scraped across hardwood flooring with a soft plastic sound that suddenly felt unbelievably loud. Ashley blinked rapidly. "No, you didn't." Naomi tilted her head slightly. "Yeah, I did." Ashley's fingers flew across her screen frantically now, refreshing the reservation page again and again like she could force reality to change through desperation alone. But every refresh showed the same thing. The silence after Naomi asked. That question felt suffocating. Nobody moved. Nobody even looked at each other. The only sound in the house was the faint humming of the heater fighting against the Colorado cold outside. Naomi stood near the entryway table while years of receipts, transfers, overdue notices, and payment confirmations sat spread out beneath the warm yellow Christmas lights, like evidence at a trial nobody expected to happen. Her father kept staring at the paperwork with that hard expression men like him wear whenever reality corners them somewhere pride cannot escape. Her mother looked smaller now, almost fragile. But Naomi knew better than to mistake fragility for innocence. And Ashley. Ashley looked terrified. Not because the vacation was ruined anymore, but because for the first time in her life she was being forced to see exactly how much of her world had been quietly held together by someone she barely treated like a person. Naomi reached into the folder again and slid another document across the table. "This one's important," she said calmly. Ashley grabbed it first, and Naomi watched the blood drain from her sister's face almost instantly. It was the notice confirming that the recurring automatic support transfers had already been canceled weeks ago. Not tonight, not impulsively, weeks earlier. The room changed again after that. Panic moved through the house like smoke. Ashley started opening apps frantically while Tyler cursed under his breath from the hallway. Naomi's mother pressed one, hand against her chest like she suddenly could not breathe properly. Her father grabbed the paper so hard Naomi thought it might tear in his hands. "What the hell is this?" he barked. Naomi met his stare without flinching. "It means the money stopped already," she said. "If any of you had actually checked your accounts instead of assuming I'd handle everything forever, you would have noticed." Ashley whispered, "No, no, no," under her breath while refreshing account balances over and over like denial could somehow change numbers on a screen. Naomi watched her sister unravel in real time, and strangely enough, she felt less rage than exhaustion. Because this moment was not sudden. None of this had appeared out of nowhere. It was the result of years. Years of being reduced to an emergency contact with a paycheck. Years of becoming everybody's backup plan while nobody ever stopped long. Enough to ask whether she was drowning under the weight of it all. Her mother finally looked up with tears filling her eyes. "Naomi," she said shakily, "you're really going to let the family fall apart over this?" That sentence hit Naomi harder than the screaming had, because even now, even standing in the wreckage of their own entitlement, her mother still framed the problem as Naomi's reaction instead of their behavior. Naomi felt something inside her go cold. "This," she said slowly, "is why I stopped telling you how I felt years ago. Because every time I did, you reduced it to hurt feelings. Like my exhaustion was temporary. Like being treated like an ATM with a pulse was just me being emotional." Her father immediately snapped back, telling her to stop acting like a victim, but Naomi barely reacted anymore. She had spent most of her life fearing his anger. Growing up with him felt like living beside a thunderstorm that could start without warning. Doors slamming, sharp criticism, constant control disguised as discipline. He always needed to dominate every room he entered, and whenever he lost control, anger became his favorite weapon. But standing there now, Naomi realized something strange. He did not scare her anymore. Maybe because once people hurt you deeply enough, fear eventually burns itself out and leaves only clarity behind. Ashley leaned against the wall, gripping her phone so tightly her fingers shook. Naomi turned toward her next. "The lender stopped. Getting backup payments from me too," she said quietly. Ashley's eyes widened immediately. Naomi continued before anyone could interrupt. "The grocery account shuts off Friday. The utilities are no longer tied to my cards. The insurance payments are done. Everything is done." Her mother started crying harder after that. Soft, desperate crying that once would have made Naomi cave instantly. But tonight it sounded different. Tonight it sounded manipulative. Not intentionally, maybe. Not consciously. But still manipulative all the same. Naomi finally understood something people like her learn too late in life. Guilt becomes a prison when your kindness is the lock keeping it closed. Her father slammed the paperwork down on the table. "You think ruining one vacation makes us even?" he demanded. Naomi looked at him for a long moment before answering. "If you think the vacation is what this is about," she said calmly, "then you still don't understand how much of Your lives has been resting on me." That sentence landed like a bomb, because suddenly they were not talking about Christmas anymore. They were talking about survival, about dependence, about an entire family structure built around one person sacrificing herself quietly enough that nobody had to feel ashamed about taking from her. Then Naomi said something none of them expected. She told them she was leaving. Not leaving for the night, leaving permanently. Her mother blinked in confusion first. Ashley stopped crying long enough to stare at her. Even her father looked caught off guard for half a second before anger rushed back into his face again. Naomi explained calmly that she would not be unpacking upstairs. She would not spend one more night under a roof she had financially helped maintain while being treated like hired labor the moment she arrived. Then she picked up her suitcase and said the words she had imagined saying for months. "I have a condo closing appointment tomorrow morning." The room went completely still. "What?" her mother whispered. Naomi looked at all of them carefully before answering. "I bought a place in Denver." Ashley stared at her in disbelief. Her father's face twisted instantly into offense instead of happiness, which honestly told Naomi everything she needed to know. Nobody asked whether she was excited. Nobody congratulated her. Nobody smiled and said they were proud of her. The first emotion on every face in that room was resentment. As if Naomi, building a future for herself, somehow betrayed them personally. Her father spoke first. "You bought property without discussing it with the family." Naomi almost laughed at how ridiculous that sounded. "Exactly," she replied. "Because every time I make a responsible decision for myself, this family treats it like shared property." Her mother looked stunned. "How long have you been planning this?" Naomi answered honestly. "About a year." And suddenly, all those late nights working overtime, all those moments of emotional distance, all those carefully avoided conversations started making sense to them. While they assumed Naomi would keep funding their lives forever, she had quietly been building an escape route, saving money, planning carefully, creating a future nobody else could invade. And she had kept it secret because she already knew exactly what would happen if they found out too early. There would be requests, expectations, hints about staying over temporarily, emergencies that somehow became her responsibility. Her future would slowly stop belonging to her and start belonging to everybody else. Ashley suddenly asked the question that exposed everything. "Where are the kids supposed to go now?" Naomi looked at her directly. "With their mother." Ashley looked genuinely shocked by the answer, and that reaction alone nearly broke Naomi's heart, because it revealed how deeply normalized this arrangement had become in their family. Ashley truly expected Naomi's life to automatically bend around hers forever. Naomi softened her tone slightly but did not back down. "Wanting a break from parenting does not mean you get to assign your children to someone else without asking." Ashley started crying again after that, quieter this time, more defeated than angry. Her father's voice rose louder, harsher. He accused Naomi of humiliating him in his own house. But Naomi finally understood something important. People who depend on control often call accountability humiliation because they cannot separate respect from obedience. For years, Naomi had swallowed her own humiliation silently. Every dismissive comment, every guilt trip, every moment she was treated like a tool instead of a daughter. Tonight was simply the first time they were the ones forced to feel uncomfortable instead. Her mother stepped closer, lowering her voice carefully, trying one final emotional maneuver. She asked Naomi to stay the night and talk things through in the morning. Naomi could hear the panic hidden underneath the softness now, because her mother understood something her father still did not. Once Naomi walked away, the family story would start collapsing. It becomes much harder to call someone dramatic when they stop returning to absorb abuse quietly. Naomi looked around the house one last time. The Christmas decorations, the glowing lights, the stockings, the carefully staged warmth hiding years of dysfunction underneath it all. And suddenly the place felt unbearably small. Her father crossed his arms tightly and delivered his final threat. "If you walk out after embarrassing this family like this," he said coldly, "don't expect to come back." Naomi looked at him for a long moment. Then she said the one thing nobody in that house expected. "That's the first useful thing you've said all night." And with that, she picked up her suitcase, turned around, and walked out into the snow. A month later, Naomi finally understood something that had taken her almost her entire life to learn. Peace does not always arrive dramatically. Sometimes, it enters quietly in small, ordinary moments that people with healthy families would never even notice. Moments like waking up on a Saturday morning without anxiety already sitting in your chest. Moments like hearing your phone buzz and realizing your body no longer immediately prepares for bad news, guilt, or another financial emergency. Moments like grocery shopping and only buying food for yourself instead of mentally calculating how many other adults secretly depended on your paycheck to survive another week. Those little things started changing Naomi slowly, not overnight. Healing never works that way. But piece by piece, she began feeling like her life actually belonged to her for the first time. Christmas arrived quietly inside the condo. There were no loud arguments, no forced smiles stretched across tension-filled dinners, no passive-aggressive comments hidden underneath fake holiday cheer. Naomi bought herself a small tree and placed it near the window overlooking the city lights. The decorations were simple, warm white lights. A soft blanket folded neatly over the armchair she finally bought after weeks of living among half-unpacked boxes. A candle burning near the kitchen sink that smelled faintly like pine and vanilla. The apartment was not huge, but every inch of it felt honest, safe. Nobody walked into this space expecting to take from her. Nobody here treated her kindness like a resource to exploit until empty. And that silence became addictive. Not lonely silence, peaceful silence. The kind where your nervous system slowly realizes it no longer has to stay prepared for emotional disaster every hour of the day. Naomi spent Christmas Eve alone, but not in the tragic way people imagine when they hear that word. She cooked dinner for herself while soft music played quietly through the apartment. Outside the windows, Denver glowed beneath winter light while snow drifted slowly through the dark streets below. At one point, she caught herself smiling for absolutely no reason except that nobody needed anything from her. Nobody was waiting to manipulate her into fixing another crisis disguised as family loyalty. Nobody was going to interrupt her evening demanding emotional labor she no longer had the strength to give. For years, Naomi believed being needed meant being loved. That belief nearly destroyed her, because when someone spends their entire life solving everybody else's problems, they start confusing usefulness with value. Naomi thought if she sacrificed enough, gave enough, rescued enough people, eventually her family would look at her and truly see her. Not as the responsible one, not as the backup plan, not as the emergency fund with a heartbeat, but as a daughter, a sister, a human being worthy of care without conditions attached. But some families do not love through appreciation. They love through dependence. And once Naomi understood that difference, she could never unsee it again. Her relationship with Ashley slowly changed over the next few weeks. Not dramatically, not perfectly, but honestly. Ashley continued sending small updates every now and then. Pictures of the kids coloring in the tiny apartment she managed to rent. Complaints about working exhausting, retail shifts during the holiday rush, Stories about learning how difficult life became when nobody else quietly absorbed all the consequences anymore. And through all those messages, one thing mattered more than anything else. Ashley never asked Naomi for money again. That silence meant more than apologies ever could, because real change is not measured by emotional speeches. It is measured by behavior. Naomi's mother continued mailing checks too, small ones, inconsistent sometimes, but still effort, still movement in Naomi's direction instead of only demands flowing out of her. Naomi did not immediately cash most of them. Part of her still needed distance before deciding what forgiveness even looked like now. Boundaries are strange that way. They are not only about what you stop giving others, they are also about what you stop forcing yourself to accept before your heart is ready. As for her father, there was nothing. No apology, no phone call, no acknowledgement at all. Just silence. And surprisingly, that silence stopped hurting after a while. Because distance gave Naomi clarity she never had while trapped inside the emotional chaos of that house. Her father only knew how to love people he could control. The second Naomi stopped obeying the role assigned to her, the relationship collapsed, under its own weight. And painful as that realization was, it also freed her. She no longer wasted energy chasing approval that was always conditional. One snowy evening after Christmas, Naomi sat near the window with a mug of tea warming her hands while the city lights shimmered softly below. Her phone rested quietly beside her untouched for hours, and suddenly she realized something almost unbelievable. Her body felt calm, not temporarily distracted, not emotionally numb. Actually calm. The kind of calm people spend years searching for, without realizing how impossible it is to achieve while constantly abandoning themselves for others. And sitting there in the quiet glow of her condo, Naomi finally understood the real lesson hidden inside everything that happened. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are responsibility. People like Naomi get taught from childhood that protecting themselves is selfish, that saying no makes them cold, that sacrificing endlessly is proof of love. But the truth is far more dangerous than that. Endless self-sacrifice does not create healthy relationships. It creates entitlement. It teaches people that your exhaustion is acceptable as long as it benefits them. It slowly trains everyone around you to view your pain as normal. And the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to remember you were allowed to matter too. Naomi wished someone had taught her earlier that support and self-destruction are not the same thing. That loving people should never require disappearing inside their needs. That real family does not demand one person drown so everybody else can stay comfortable. Healthy love has limits. Healthy care includes respect. And sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do for everyone involved is stop rescuing people from consequences they desperately need to face. That was the part outsiders rarely understand about stories like hers. This was never really about revenge. The canceled. Vacation felt satisfying, yes. Watching people who used her finally confront reality carried a certain justice to it. But revenge was not the real victory. The real victory happened afterward. In the silence. In the peace. In waking up each morning and realizing her life no longer revolved around managing everybody else's dysfunction. The strongest revenge was refusing to keep playing the role that was destroying her. And honestly, that changed everything. Because once you finally experience a life where your kindness is not constantly exploited, you become very careful about who gets access to your peace ever again. Naomi still loved her family in some complicated, painful way. Healing does not magically erase history. But love without boundaries had nearly cost her herself. And now that she finally understood the difference between helping people and sacrificing her entire existence for them, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was never going back to the woman standing exhausted on that snowy porch, believing she had to earn love through suffering. That version of Naomi was gone, and for the first time in years, she finally felt free. If this story hit you emotionally, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what you honestly think. Was Naomi justified for cutting everyone off the way she did? Or should family always get another chance, no matter how badly they treat you? And if you've ever had to choose between protecting your peace or keeping toxic people comfortable, I really want to hear your story too.